Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and I was always told I had a voice radio, so today I am sitting in a hotel room at about midnight in a time zone with which I am not familiar to tell you about a very exciting new Pokémon card, and that is Torment Spray. And as the name might suggest, it can be quite annoying. What it does is you get to pick one card from your opponent's hand. If you happen to pick a supporter card, at random of course, then they have to pop it in their discard pile. If not, it goes back into your opponent's hand. So essentially here, either you pick a supporter card, they put it in the discard and everything is good, or you don't pick a supporter card and it's a very, very bad thing because you've just wasted your item card for the turn. Now this fits with the theme quite nicely. It's clearly Team Skull gear, as you can see from the picture, and Team Skull Grunt is an annoying card, Team Flare Grunt is an annoying card, Team Rocket's Handiwork is an annoying card. So it's nice that they're going with the theme. And to be clear here, if you can drop this card at the exact right time, it is absolutely amazing. If you don't, it's not. So how can we make sure you do drop it at the right time? Well, you can use Gumshoes. Gumshoes lets you look at your opponent's hand, then you play this card. Just to be clear, you are picking a card at random here, so that means that after you look with Gumshoes, it doesn't mean that you can then pick the supporter you saw. Now, we don't have the current translation, but it's almost certainly going to be a random card, and that means that even if you look with Gumshoes, if they've got one supporter in a 2-card hand, they can shuffle it and mix it all up, and you've still only got a 50-50 chance of hitting it. Delinquent could be fun. You get your opponent to discard 3 cards from their hand, which means you've got a much greater chance of hitting a supporter. So let's say your opponent's got 2 Pokemon, 1 Energy, and a Professor Sycamore. If you play a Delinquent, they're probably going to keep the Professor Sycamore so that they can draw more cards and not be in top deck mode. So they discard the 2 Pokemon and an Energy. You then play Torment Spray, get them to discard the Professor Sycamore, and then they're drawing absolutely nothing. Want to go further? How about you combine this with a red card? You play a red card, that forces your opponent to a 4-card hand. Then you play a Delinquent, forcing them to a 1-card hand, and then you play Torment Spray, and if they have saved their supporter, you get rid of it. And they can discard their supporter to spite you, but then they still don't have the supporter, so it's really not that much of a bad thing. Now, if you really want to go even further, you could even play a Silent Lab here, because of course if your opponent does get rid of everything, including supporters, they're going to want to play things like Shaman or Tapu Lele to grab a supporter, draw cards, etc. And Silent Lab will, of course, turn that off. Could be quite fun. The other really fun combo we've got here is Getsis. Getsis is a lovely supporter. Now, it's only legal in Expanded, not in Standard at the moment, but it means you get to look at your opponent's hand and all of their item cards go back into their deck. So that's the Ultra Balls that they could use to get Tapu Lele, Shaman, etc. It's Trainer's Mail that they could use, it's Versus Seeker, more on that in a minute, and you get rid of all of those cards, Computer Search even in Expanded. And then maybe they've got 1 supporter, and if you can hit it with Torment Spray, it's amazing. Of course, like I've said, even if you do get rid of all of their items and they have only got 1 supporter, you've still got to choose the right card with Torment Spray, or you don't get to discard the supporter anyway, which is a little bit of a problem. And we've mentioned it already, but let's mention it now, Versus Seeker. Versus Seeker means they can reuse supporter cards. Now on the first turn of the game, if there are no supporter cards in the discard, that's fine. But in the mid to late game, when they've got Professor Sycamore and N and all in the discard, it means that they can use Versus Seeker and have their choice of supporters, which is very nice. I mean, you could even play Torment Spray, hit the supporter, and then they can just use Versus Seeker to reuse it. Although it does mean in that situation they have wasted a Versus Seeker. So it just seems like there's such a low chance of hitting with Torment Spray, because you've got to pick the exact right card. You don't get to look at their hand and discard a supporter. If that was how it read, it would be really good, but it's not. So it isn't. And even if you hit the right card, maybe they've got a Shaman or a Lele or a Versus Seeker or an Ultra Ball, there's just so many ways around it at the moment that unless you pull off some kind of crazy red card Delinquent Silent Lab with Torment Spray combo, It's just probably not going to work, which means I'm going to have to give Torment Spray 2 Wassies. It's such a fun little disruption card, and it really has got quite a lot of potential as a disruption card. But I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I just cannot endorse it at the moment, because it's way too difficult to hit the supporter, and even if you do, it might not work. Now you know the deal, there is a comment section, go nuts, be nice. Make sure you've liked this video, subscribe to this channel if you've not already done so. Don't click the button if you have, because that'll unsubscribe and that makes me a sad panda. Make sure you follow me on Twitter @TheWassie, and the most important thing as always, look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching, my name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.